guys, welcome to my channel. So the channel's name is Snaga, in case if you're wondering what Snaga actually means. It means strength in Bosnian. So I am a Bosnian American. I've been living in the United States now for 29 years, I believe. So 40-year-old guy. I have 3 kids and a wife, and I just really wanted to start documenting my journey that I've been on now for the last 6 to 7 months. I have, through discipline and hard work and dedication, I've really taken my body and my mind to places that I've never ever been before. And I'm hoping that, some of you guys join me, and I'm hoping that maybe I can help you along the way, as others have helped me, right? So I'll kind of give just a little backstory of how this all started and where I was and what are some of the main key points that I had to learn in order for me to get to where I am. So I've been lifting since I was 16. I started when I was in high school. I used to play soccer there, and I was never strong. In high school I was like 5'11", the same height I am now, 135 pounds. So I was a really strong kid, or a really skinny kid. I never really was able to put on a lot of muscle, right? And as the years went on, I worked out a lot, I tried, and I never really got to a point where I would say I was ultimately happy with the way I looked. I always was either skinny fat or kind of skinny with no muscle, and was just ultimately never really happy with the way I looked. Fast forward to 2023, I'm around, I believe this is October right now, at this time, and I'm 37 years old, and the last 3 years, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 points that I've learned that have really gotten me to the point where I'm at. So I started working out with this guy that I worked with, and one thing I noticed with him is that like every second or third week, he would get to a certain rep range and he would add on weight, and I kind of questioned him on that, and I was kind of doing the same thing, but not really realizing that's what the term progressive overload really means, right? And I've always heard that term, but never really fully understood how to actually build muscle. And so it's really simple, right? Once you get up to a certain rep range, you should bump up the weight because you've hit a certain threshold, and your muscle now has hopefully accommodated that, and now you need to kind of put it under stress again, right? So my motto is now, for the most part, on a lot of my lifts, is once I get to 8, I put on weight, right? So I kind of learned that there in 2023, right? I was working out there till around, I want to say, March of 2024. Unfortunately, at that time, I had a near-death experience. Actually, I had my appendix actually removed. My appendix leaked E. coli into my bloodstream. I got very sick. I went to septic shock. So it was a very, very scary moment of my life. But luckily, I came out okay. And after that, I kind of worked out for another 2 months, but it was always kind of the same thing, right? This time I actually learned what progressive overload meant, but I was still 185 pounds, 180 pounds, somewhere around there, which for me is just, it's too much. Like, I just don't fit that frame at this moment, right? I think if I had a lot more muscle on me, then it would be different, but at that time, I just didn't. So I kind of stopped again, and then all of a sudden, fast forward to 2024, around October, November timeframe, I started to work out again. And I picked up on 2 things that I think have helped me along the way as well. So another thing that I picked up on was walking. I never really liked cardio. I always hated running, and so I never liked doing that. But when I worked out in 2024 and 2025, I would work out in the mornings or after work. And so I had lunch where I would just sit there for an hour, right? I have a typical corporate job. And I realized, I'm like, well, this is kind of boring, right? Why don't we just go walk for an hour? And I realized that was like a big key where I could get to 8,000 to 10,000 steps in that hour. And that was huge for me, right? Because what I realized was that I was burning a lot of calories in those 10,000 steps, right? And then I would do my typical walks everywhere, right around work and home and things like that. So I was probably getting around 15, 16,000 steps a day, right? Which was the most I've ever done probably, in my life that I can remember. So that was like the third step, right? And also, the gym owner at Endurance Fitness is where I used to go. It's probably the greatest gym in Kentwood, Michigan. That's where I'm from. I noticed that, the guy his name was Jason, really nice guy. He was really he weighed 175, so he was right around my weight and same height, but he was really lean, just extremely lean. And one thing I always noticed is the guy would walk around a lot, right? And I always kind of wondered, I'm like, why is he walking so much, right? Why is he's walking around a lot, and he's also writing down every one of his lifts. That was like one of the big things. Like I noticed that he wrote down every single thing he did. And I asked him about it one time. I was talking to him, and he mentioned how he was having trouble with remembering, what he did last week, right? Did he maybe do bench at 185 6 times, or was it 7 times? Was it 8 times? He couldn't quite remember. So he started writing things down so that way it could kind of help him. And he can also see his progress, right? Which made a lot of sense to me because I'm one of those visual people where if I see progress and I can actually have data to prove it, it's automatically, it's like a dopamine hit, right? It helps me, right? It makes me realize like what I'm doing is working. And he was also big into walking 25, 30,000 steps, right? So he was doing even double what I was doing. So fast forward again, 7-8 months went by. This time I'm around 175, 180 pounds, right? I'm looking a little bit better, but still not lean, right? And I kind of fall off the bandwagon again. And I get up to 190, 192. And now, fast forward, it's almost been 3 years, right? It's 2026 is quickly approaching. January 21st is my birthday. I'm turning 40 on January 21st, 2026. So I'm thinking to myself, I need to do something. I was kind of in a rut. I realized I gained weight again. I didn't want to give up on myself. I knew that if I kind of maybe put some of these things that I learned in these past 3 years, which was walk a lot, write everything down, add on weight, progressive overload, and if I could do those things and maybe figure out a diet that I really liked, then I can really do this, right? And so it was January 7th, 2026. I decided to sign up for the Y, and I did, right? And one thing that I've done in the past that really have helped me to lose weight is the 1 meal a day diet. Now, I know that's for some people that's controversial, right? They kind of talk about the fact that, you should eat 2, 3, 4 meals, whatever the case may be. But for me, when I wanted to lose weight, it was a great way to do it for about 3 to 4 weeks, a month. I could lose about 10 pounds in that month. And it worked amazing, right? And so that's what I decided to do. I told myself, you know what? I'm going to do the 1 meal a day diet. I'm going to do it for about maybe a month or two. See if I can get down to the 170 range and see how I look, right? Well, I started working out. Things were going great, right? The first month I lost about 10 pounds. This is now February 9th, and I'll put up a picture of how I looked around February, right, time frame. I'll kind of do like a January, February, March time frame. You'll see when I went from 190 to 185, 175, 170, 165, and things were really working out, right? I started getting to a point where I even got down to 173, 174. And I kind of plateaued. I couldn't really figure out what to do. I was working out. I was eating really clean. I was still eating 1 meal a day diet. The diet consisted of just whatever my wife and I were eating that night, right? So it was not anything special. I did not try to hit a certain protein goal or anything like that. I just really wanted to have 1 meal and that's it. No snacking afterwards or anything like that. So it was right around April time frame. And I decided, I was like, what if I just wake up every morning and I do a walk of around 10,000 to 11,000 steps. And then I just do my typical walks, right? As I kind of do throughout the day, where I'm walking around the house and everywhere else. So I started doing that. And the next thing I knew, all of a sudden I was getting around 25 to 30,000 steps. And that was my big breakthrough. Once I hit 30,000 steps and I did it for about 3 to 4 or 5 days regularly, all of a sudden the scale started dropping again. So I got down to 162 in a matter of like 3 to 4 weeks. And this is around April timeframe, mid-April, right? And I had a vacation coming up, which was in Mexico. It was supposed to be at the end of the month of April, so right in the beginning of May. And I decided around April 15th, once I got to 161, that I was pretty happy with my physique, right? I've lost around 30 pounds at that point. I looked a little depleted, right, just because of all the glycogen. I lost all my glycogen for pretty much now for 2-3 months. And I did a cut for about 3.5 months, right? So I decided, I was like, I think enough is enough. I was at the point where I could see my abs, my love handles were gone, and I couldn't believe it, right? My plan worked. I did a 1 meal a day diet for 3.5 months. It was not that hard. I worked out. I actually improved in the gym. I went up in weight on every single, every single thing that I did, and it just felt absolutely amazing. And that's when I started to kind of add in a second. I decided to add in a second meal, right? And I kind of wanted to see, okay, how is this going to work, right? I added a second meal when I went to Mexico, just because it was an all-inclusive resort, and it worked out amazing. I came back, I weighed 163, so I gained really no weight whatsoever. And I did that for about another week, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to add a third meal. And ever since then, essentially, it's July now. It's July 7th, I believe, July 8th. And it's just been absolutely amazing. I've been crushing in the gym. I've gone up like 20 pounds in my bench. I've gone up like 40 pounds in my squat. Every single weight I've been improving on. I've been writing everything down. I'm walking 30,000 steps every single day. That's my non-negotiable. That's one of those things where, I know people will say, well, how do you, that's insane, that's crazy, how do you do it? Just figure out a way to do it, right? I first get around 11 to 12,000 steps in the morning, right before even like 7:30 a.m. And after that, at work, I just take a little bit longer way to the water cooler. I go to the bathroom, I just walk, and I try to get my steps, right? So I hope this helps some of you. I hope it helps you realize that I'm just a regular guy. I have, a wife and kids, 3 kids, right? They're 6, 4, and 3. There's nothing special about me. But the key always was, and this is what I think what's gonna essentially hook me into this lifestyle, is that once I got lean, that's when everything changed, right? I've tried working out for years and years and years, and it just never worked because I was always around 180 pounds. And, my waist when I'm at 190 is around 40 inches, right? My stomach circumference. When I'm around 180, 175, it's around 36, right? Well, now, with the way I look now, I'm at 32. And it's unbelievable, right? I have a 6-pack. I've gotten so many amazing compliments from people, right, that they can't believe how good I look. And honestly, it's amazing. It's a great feeling, and I want you guys all to experience that. So I hope you can follow me along this journey. I hope you can see that it's not as hard as people make it out to be, and I'll show you all my tips and tricks. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep posting as much as I possibly can. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Snaga.